Welcome to the Comics Cube, everyone. Today I am joined by my friend Bea Rahoma. How are you, Bea?
Hello, thank you, Doy, for having me tonight. I'm so excited. I'm doing great. Really excited to. I've used that word twice because it's genuinely what I'm feeling. But I'm really looking forward to talking to you about this amazing manga that we both love and are horrified by.
We are doing a very special Halloween episode of Uzumaki by Junji Ito.
Ooh,
This is a
yes.
manga, so we're reading it from back to front. So let me just read the
Mm-hmm.
plot summary, the plot synopsis from the back. Kurozocho, a small foghound town on the coast of Japan, is cursed, according to Shuichi Saito, the withdrawn boyfriend of teenager Kirie Goshima. I love how they have to say the relationship out loud, like in the
I know.
synopsis. Their town is haunted not by a person, or being, but a pattern. Uzumaki, the
Ooh.
spiral, the hypnotic secret shape of the world. This bizarre masterpiece of horror manga is now available in a single volume. Fall into a whirlpool of terror.
Thank you, Doy. Very atmospheric.
A little bit of trivia for those not in the know. Uzumaki is also
Yeah.
Naruto's last name. Um,
Yes. Which is actually how I found out about the term. Like when I was young, I'm like, that's an Uzumaki. And then I hear about this, I'm like, Naruto. But it's not at all.
so, where did you first hear about this manga, Uzumaki, by Junji Ito?
Okay. From what I remember, I think I heard about it on the internet because but it's been many years. I only actually picked this up in 2019 on my birthday. There's actually a little special story because it's my birthday in 2019 and I was like, I'm gonna buy me some books. And then I was like, you know what? This is my time to buy more Junji Ito stories. Because up until that point, I've only read the shorts. Like, of course, Enigma of Amigara Fault. Um, and then the one about the balloons, the floating heads. I forgot what it's called, but a lot of his short mangas. And then I picked this up. And in that same year, in 2019, like a few days later, after I finished it, they announced that they were gonna have the anime adaptation. And I was like,
This is out in
impeccable timing.
2022.
Yes, supposed to be this year, but it's like, hopefully it's worth the wait.
But we know
Looks
what
really
happened.
good. Uh, just a little bit. But yeah, so I found out about this on the internet like years ago, but I never bothered to like read it until I finally picked it up last like 2 years ago, and I have not gone back since. The spiral has been with me ever since.
The
Yeah.
spiral has been with you ever since.
Yes.
That is so
Ooh.
creepy in the context of this book. I same. So
Yeah.
this manga actually came out serially in Big Comic Spirits from 1998 to 1999, and it was first released in an omnibus edition in 2000. So this is um not new, but
Yeah. Not at
I
all.
I only heard about it like maybe 5 years ago or so. I don't read a lot of manga, and the reason for that is
Mm-hmm.
because I fear long stories and commitment. Read into that what you
Hmm.
people will.
Hmm.
It's also the reason I don't want to watch. I don't watch a lot of Netflix shows. But uh,
Fair.
manga tends to go on for 40, 50, 60 volumes. And Uzumaki is one book, so I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I picked it up last year on my birthday.
Ooh. Oh my god. Wait, that's
By
kind of the
the way,
same stuff.
I
Yeah.
believe we're both Leos as well. So,
Yes. Few days apart. So
well, no, you bought it in 2019. I bought it last year, so
I
we
oh no,
actually
I
bought
mean
it
our
like a year
birthdays.
apart.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's true. But our birthday. So it's like, oh, that's weird. We kind of picked it up at like during our birthdays. I'm like, man.
So Uzumaki means
Yeah.
spiral, and as you can see, when even very early on, when the book is still in color, there's a few color pages in this book.
Yeah.
We see a lot of spiral patterns. What do you think of the artwork here? Because to me, the spiral patterns are very ornate,
Mm-hmm.
detailed, and I never realized spirals
Yeah.
could be so freaking creepy.
Yep. Very. That's like the inner cover. the first inner cover of the book.
Ah.
So good. And then the last was
Oh my
like,
god, the girl with the eye.
I know. That was a great chapter though. This is
It
amazing. Like,
was.
right? In terms of the art, I've been a fan of Junji Ito's art since since like I said, since I started reading his shorter manga. And I was just like, damn, like his stylistically speaking, because his anime, his art style leans towards the more realistic slash semi-realistic part of the spectrum, right? Because manga like ranges from like chibi, so kind of like ultra cartoonish, to the usuals like really big eyes, tiny noses, tiny mouths, and basically exaggerated, overdrawn features. But his is like that's like my kind of style. As an artist, this is the way I draw too, like kind of realistic. So, and his art is so detailed, like what you said.
Yeah.
It's
Intricate.
right, like so intricate, and just like look at that. Ooh, that colored chapter. Damn.
Do you
Well
prefer the
done.
colored page? Do you wish the whole thing was in color? Because
Actually, ooh, that's an interesting question. Actually, well, I've been a manga reader since I was young, so I'm super used to the black
the
and
black and
white,
white, yeah.
yeah, of manga. And I think with Junji Ito's story, especially here in Spiral, like the black and white just adds an another kind of like dimension to it. Like it's something that doesn't need to be in color. It kind of gives like look at that, like a really dreary feel to the story that if it were in color, it might it's gonna translate as like a completely different artistic choice, right? Especially if you look at his colors, they're so deceivingly bright, like the colored
Yes.
pages,
Yes.
right? It's like
It's
it's
not
just
what
not
it's not the palette you would pick for a horror book.
exactly. Which actually, if it were in color, it would be like an interesting contrast between the story and the colors. But then having it in black and white just means that he can focus more on like the detailed lines and communicating like all of that action through you know through strokes, black and white strokes, and state shading and crosshatch, which works super well for the story for me. How
I
about
want to
you?
point out something that you mentioned, which is that
Yeah.
manga goes all the way from chibi to super realistic stuff. Because
Yeah.
I'm gonna look right into the camera now. A bunch of you people who don't read manga, who are my age and only read American comics, think all manga look alike, and they do not. So stop that. Stop it. Okay. It's a
PSA,
pet.
it's a PSA.
It's a pet peeve of mine, Bea. It's a pet
Yeah.
peeve.
Ooh.
Right. So very quickly we learned that things in this town, in the town of Kurozocho, just turn into spirals. And that
Yeah.
includes Shuichi Saito's, our main character's dad.
Yeah.
That's his
Ooh.
tongue. Ah!
Man. So creepy. Oh. That was such a great scene.
And eventually he turns himself into a spiral. Look at that. Ah! I think his realistically detailed style like just
Yeah.
makes it so creepy because it's like, yeah, that's what it would look like if that happened, even if it's completely unrealistic and shouldn't ever happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I think you put it like really well because this whole I mean like the entire manga is just it's of course it's like a really absurd cosmic horror. It's kind of like cosmic horror story. Just it's like completely inexplicable and completely unavoidable as we find out, which is a tragic part of it. But
Yeah.
right, but the art just like elevates that because it it just magnifies the horror. Like if you would do this in the more typical manga slash animes, like that's more exaggerated, or if in Western terms like cartoonish, quote unquote, I don't think it would have the same chilling effect. Because like Junji Ito, and I think you talked about this when we first like chatted about Uzumaki, that he has a really great way of like zooming in on the horror with like his splash pages. Like when the most horrific thing happened, like what you showed is like boom, two
Oh
pages
my
worth of it.
goodness. Yeah. Oh,
So good.
it's so good. And the thing with spirals too is that it causes like this really, really, really claustrophobic effect.
Yeah.
It's like
Oh yeah.
even it draws you right in. It's like you can't escape it. And also it points out how spirals are everywhere.
Yeah, oh my god, right. Like, and you don't even realize that fully until you read this, that there are so many aspects of a spiral. It's not just like on the body or like in nature. It's even like everyday objects. And you're like, what? That's scary, man.
Yeesh. Shuichi's dad dies, obviously, because nobody can survive like that, and he is cremated, and even the
Yeah.
smoke turns into spirals. Again,
Yeah.
like we said, this is all unavoidable. It's a tragedy, like most horror. I think most horror
Yeah.
movies end badly, right?
Yeah, yeah, especially the well done ones. Or like if it's a quote unquote happy ending, there's always a price to pay before like a heavy price. The good horror should have a heavy price to pay.
You know what? I'll tell you a story about horror for me. When I was a kid, my
Ooh.
mom made me watch Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't know which one, but anyway, that was my standard of being scared for a horror movie. To the point where I can watch a horror movie now and I will
Yeah.
not be scared in the course of watching it. A couple of weeks later, I'll be, dreaming, and in my dream will be imagery from the horror movie I watched 2 weeks ago. I'd actually rather be scared in the cinema than have it make its way to my dream.
Yeah, yeah. Because at least it's just on the screen and not in your head.
Right. But I think one of the things in movies where the reason I don't really get creeped out or scared is because
Yeah.
nothing really lingers, right? In a movie, you see it and then it passes. But with something like this, it's just like it's in my face, Bea. So I'm like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
my God, this is so creepy. Flip the page.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's like it's physical. Like it's something you can like really touch and just stare at forever. Like you can't get it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I have trypophobia. So trypophobia
Bless.
is not a fear.
Yeah.
It's like I think it's like a psychological condition. So what happens is if I'm really weirded out by something, like my head really starts to itch. So I was reviewing for this
Ooh.
video and I'm like, all right, let's review this manga. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm doing it right now, Bea.
Oh my god. I'm so sorry, Doy. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Oh my god. I don't blame you though. I mean like the like what we said earlier, that whole part with I don't know, I think it's fine if we jump towards it like oh my god, like look at that. I'm gonna spoil it.
Ah, yeah,
That is
yeah,
a
yeah. That's the eye, right?
lighthouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lighthouse eye.
Yep.
And look at how it's literally an entirely sentient being on
Yeesh.
it's melting. It's
Yeesh.
melting. Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
so
creepy.
that's another one. This girl with a scar on her head and just gets
Yeah.
bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually what happens?
It devours. Well, at first it
Ah!
devours the dude.
Ah!
it's like it's like it's literally a whirlpool, which is also a present image in the whole manga. But that part reminds me of like there's this I don't remember it, but it's a game or one of those science fair contraptions where like you put a ball and just like right? I don't know what it's called, but
You drop the ball and then it goes in a spiral until it gets to
yeah,
the hole. Yeah.
exactly. That's it.
Oh
That's what's on
God.
her eye.
That's what's in her eye.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, Bea, is that the first few chapters of the book, it's like very slow. A lot of it is standalone stuff.
Yeah.
You could pardon the expression, devour it piecemeal.
I see what you did there.
What did you have a favorite one out of those shorter stories that could be consumed on their own?
Ooh, actually, I was browsing it again earlier, like you to review it, but I think my favorite one out of these shorter stories is the one about because that one is super creepy. And it's kind of like it's one of the later stories. It's the one with the the mosquito moms. You remember that? The
Yeah.
mosquito moms, right? Like because I'm a huge fan of vampires and anything related to vampires. So when I saw that, and they were like pregnant moms needed blood to sustain their babies, it was in a hospital.
And the
So
babies want to get back in the womb.
yeah, oh my god, that's like and they weren't even normal.
Mm.
Like the embryos, the no no the umbilical cords were like weird mushroom spiral mushrooms.
Yeah, and the placentas would fall down and then just start
Yeah,
growing as
yeah,
spiral
yeah,
mushrooms.
exactly.
I think that's my favorite too out of all
Yeah,
of them. I agree. It's either that or the one with the eye.
yeah.
What kind of mind do you think comes up with ideas like this?
Well, which is something what's well known on Twitter, as we all know. Junji Ito seems to be a very happy man. He's so wholesome. Like if you see his stuff, he's like he makes another manga about his cat, living with his cats, and like when he talks about horse, he's just like this rainbow guy. Like he seems like a super chill guy compared to like Hayao Miyazaki, who's just like all dread. But then when he makes when he makes stories, it's all like so hopeful and bright, and it's so funny because Junji Ito is like the exact opposite. So I guess like
Junji Ito loves Disney, loves the
yeah,
Beatles,
yeah,
plays with his
yeah,
cat. Hayao Miyazaki hates the Beatles,
mm-hmm.
fucking hates the Beatles,
Exact the underline,
hates
yeah.
Disney, doesn't like animals.
And yeah, the stories they produce, it's like just makes me think. Like I just think Junji Ito's that kind of guy who, because he's right, he seems like such a happy-go-lucky, chill kind of dude. He's just so interested in how like horror can help you explore like the darker side of humanity. Not even the darker side, sometimes just like the everyday side, but with like a much darker aspect of it. And I guess that's what makes him so effective because it's like I don't know. I can't say if obviously the spire like literally this doesn't come from his experiences. Hopefully not. But like thematically speaking, whether or not he experienced, similar stuff to this, it's like it's just, his imagination is so wild. It just
Mm-hmm.
it's so rich, right? Such a rich imagination, and he's got such a great artistic technique. So I guess that's why, like I don't know. I can't answer it personally, but like I guess that's also why that's where it comes from, his stories and why it's so effective to read and to see. It's because it's so different from how he seems to be normally the kind of life he lives, right?
If you're looking at this specifically just from a horror perspective, where you're looking at
Yeah.
it for the visuals and everything, it's super effective. But then if you
Yeah.
look at it just a little bit further, like it does kind of come out with a commentary on like the human condition, because there's
Mm-hmm.
that one story about, and I'm surprised because I was looking this up and I see that this is one of the least liked chapters. There's that
Oh.
story about the hair battle.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Kiria's hair turns into a spiral. So Kiria is,
Yeah.
as the synopsis of the book points out, Shuichi's girlfriend, because we can't figure that out when reading the book itself.
From the start.
Uh, so Kiria's hair turns into a spiral, and some girl is like super jealous of her that her hair ends up turning into a spiral itself, and then she's actually happy about it. What's
Yeah.
up with that, right? But what do you think that says
Yeah.
about the human condition? I feel like that
Oh, yeah.
happens.
It really does, and I think that's, I mean, like in general, I think that's what's so great about like his stories, this whole book or manga as a whole. It's obviously like like what you said, super effective at the horror level, but how they develop the characters, and especially in those like little self-contained stories at the beginning before everything like truly goes to shit towards the end. That's when it's really like apocalypse level horror, right?
Oh my goodness.
Crazy,
Yeah.
right? But in terms of like that girl who I don't remember her name, but the one who
The
she's
one,
got like black hair,
yeah, the
right? The
one who
one who
likes it.
yeah. Because like and that the context of the chapter is that Kiria's classmates get really entranced by her hair. Like they don't find it weird because you might be asking yourself like, isn't it weird that this girl has like sentient spiral shaped hair? for the people, it's like no, it's amazing, which is the same effect that the girl you mentioned earlier. I think her name's Asami, the one who had the spiral scar, had
Her
on the
name
boys in
is
that school.
Asami.
As yeah, I think so. Asami, right? Or yeah, I think it was Asami,
I know a
right?
different Asami. Okay.
Oh, so do I. But so I just think like it just shows how, it's like that, especially in high school, right? It's just like these high school girls in this small town.
I was gonna
Because
say I haven't been to high
yeah.
school in 20 years, so I'm like, was high school ever like this? And I think the answer is yes. Yes, high school was
Yeah.
like this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, then and now, I don't think it's it's changed, but or like there's still similar experiences, and I guess this is one kind of experience with like this other girl who's just jealous of someone who has more attention, and when she finally gets it, and she has to suffer the consequence of like losing herself to it, literally losing herself because the poor girl just gets, her life force sucked out by her hair. So
I have to say, Bea,
yeah.
I obviously am not a girl and have never been a girl, and therefore have never, I've never experienced girl politics.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember, being in high school and thinking girl politics is like, wow, this is a complicated but real thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
then I watched Mean Girls in 2004 with my friend Laura, and I remember saying to her in the middle of Mean Girls, this is such an unrealistic movie. Nobody would be this mean. And she says to me, you don't know women, do you? So reading something
Yeah.
like this is a stark reminder of like, yep, there are things in life I don't know.
For better or for worse,
For
I
better or for
guess.
worse, I do not understand this, and yet I know it exists.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
leave it to a horror master with spirally hair to remind me of things like that.
Right. And it's so good actually. Like now that you mention it, it's oh my god, like which is really sad because like women, that kind of culture, having been part of that, it's also a product of like of the patriarchy, of course. And it's also like internalized misogyny. But like I think the book shows that really well. It's just this girl who just wants what someone else has for herself and is willing to like pay the price for it, even
I
if she
agree.
doesn't know the full price, right?
Right.
And very complicated. Like sometimes you're like, oh, I'm gonna be nice to this girl, pero um, but then you're not actually genuine, and I think that book shows that too.
Very complicated, very real.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think of the Jack in the Box story?
Oh my god, I was gonna mention that earlier because that chapters that creeped me out so much. Just
Oh my God.
right? Crazy. Cause like let's see, let me look for the art. But like I think it creeped me out so much because it was literally just this jumping corpse whose spinal column turned into a spiral. So it became a
Because
spiral column.
it's such a simple idea, right? A simple starting point for an
Yeah.
idea. Because Junji Ito basically says, you know what's a spiral? A spring. You know what's got springs? A Jack in the
Yeah.
Box.
Exactly. Oh
And
my
it's
god.
just this kid who I feel like, you ever watch Buffy?
Yes. I did watch
How
Buffy.
in Buffy the monsters are like metaphors for whatever they're going through at the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, this kid likes to jump out and surprise people. He gets turned into a Jack in the
Yeah.
Box. Stuff like that. But it's so much creepier than Buffy because Buffy had really bad special effects. Okay.
Thank you. Late 90s, early 2000s effects. Oh my god. But that's okay. Because, like, no, actually, I really like how you brought up that point, though. Because now that you mention it, I actually didn't catch it the first time I saw it, but that's the Jack in the Box for everyone to see. Oh, how horrible is that? And it's like it's so cool because like right before you literally see this corpse going going through it, as in he doesn't start out as a Jack in the Box. It's like a gradual like decomposing or transformation of this corpse. He's literally
he
dead.
he turns into, like, he develops springs.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, actually, I really like how you mentioned that about how like it's a symbol of what they're going through at the time. And I think that goes for the rest of the characters. That right, especially in those self-contained sort of self-contained vignettes.
Which I would
Like
say is the first half of the book,
yeah,
the
yeah,
self-contained stuff.
yeah, right. Because everything gets into the overarching plot after the like past the midway point. So it's like each of the what the characters become is just it's either like a solution to their problem, like one of the lovers, the little kids, right, who
Mm-hmm.
just twirl into each other, and they just like go away into actually they just dive deep into the lake, right? It's like a solution to their problems, or just like what you said, a manifestation of what they're going through, or like their usual habits or patterns or personalities, which is really cool. It's a really cool detail. Like it just, and I think that's why the horror is so effective, because it's not, it's not just some random jump scare that's completely illogical or takes you out of the story. It really builds up on the foundations that he lays at the
Yeah.
beginning.
It takes what you have and then it turns that into horror. That's
Yeah.
that's what makes this whole thing work. The thing with the demon babies, you would think
Oh
as
my god.
Filipinos we would not be creeped out by demon babies
Yeah. But
because the chanak is a staple, but
oh yeah.
no, demon babies, they are never not creepy.
Exactly. Oh my god. Talking demon babies.
Talking demon babies,
Especially.
they are never not creepy. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like what is that? Let's see. Ah!
Oh my god. Yeah, the umbilical cord. Oof.
Oh my god.
That is a real reaction. Like, oh, it's such a visceral reaction. Oh my god.
uh, and it doesn't work if this guy couldn't draw, right? Like the idea of it
Oh
is
yeah.
not enough. You have to
Yep.
execute this visually.
Yep. Yep. Which is a staple in his works. Like that attention to detail and just zooming in, like the splash pages, just I magnify the horror. Yeah.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10 of how much you agree with me, I think the
Ooh.
turning point for you got to tell me how much you agree with me. I think the
Okay.
turning point for this book, the moment it stops being like something that you can consume piecemeal, is the first story with the snail.
Actually, yeah. I think by that point, because up till that point, like the spiral only affected, let's say, like 1 to 2 people at the time, right? Like Shuichi's father, like the 2 kids, Asami, and then that other girl who wanted her hair, her wanted
Yeah.
her hair to be spiral too, right? But then the snail part is when like the whole everything started. Actually, even the moms, the moms, it was just like the group of moms. It wasn't like the moms and the families, or actually the moms and their babies. But once the snail part hit, that
No
was the
one is
sign that
safe.
exactly, yeah, anyone could be affected by it, and they were.
And you
'Cause-
don't know why, because like
yeah,
at first the guy who gets turned into a snail,
yeah,
um which by the way, that thing happens like several times, and
yeah,
it I never get used to it. Like every time
yeah,
somebody turns into a snail, it happens. So the thing with what's his name? Katayama,
yeah.
right? At first he's just a kid who's really slow. So he gets turned into a snail.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes into what I was saying, that everything that happens is a reflection of their personalities. But then
Yep.
two other people get turned into a snail and they're not slow. And that's when you're like,
Yeah.
oh my god, this is
Yeah.
not good.
Just a bit. Just maybe it's not. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's like that's when it really starts to affect the whole town, right? Not just like groups of people, because it's a school, right? And up until then, there were only like what 2 incidents at the school, right? Like the hair and the scar, and
Yeah.
those only affected 2 girls.
And the
Everyone else
scar
was just drawn to
also,
it.
you don't see it in the school.
Yeah, yeah, you don't. But this one, it's like that's when it really starts to spread And my god, and like I guess in that part, like Junji, it also just keeps pushing the boundaries of body horror, right? Like it's so creepy, right? Like he actually uses, actually I think that part, the snail, is like the first time he actually uses an actual living organism or animal to like transforms a human into like a living organism, because the others were just people like having their parts transformed to spirals, but this is actually a spiral that, that exists. Like we've all seen snails. Some people have kept snails as pets. People eat snails.
People eat snails,
And
yes. Yes.
right, so eating spirals, right? And I guess that's what's so scary about it. It's like you're so slow and slimy, and you don't know why. You don't know why it happens and how to reverse it
No,
at all.
and if this were a science fiction work, this whole thing would then become all about reversing it. But this
Yeah.
is a horror work,
Yes. Very different.
and that's not what happens here. Um,
Oh god.
so Katayama, the slow kid, turns into a snail, and then his bully Tsumura also turns into a snail, and he's
Yep.
not slow at all. And then they start mating, and
Yeah.
that's when they're like, no way, they're both males. But no, snails are hermaphrodites, which means they've turned completely into snails. This is
Yeah.
not even a thing where they're human beings inside and then they turn into snails. They've turned completely into snails.
Yeah.
And then
So creepy.
their teacher also turns into a snail.
Yeah. Oh
Look at that
my god.
shit.
Whew. Okay.
You know what's
That is
creepy
totally
about that? All of those little things. That is so creepy.
right. They're
I
just bumps on the body.
I apologize to all my viewers who never see me react like this, but really, this is the first horror comic we're looking at, guys. it's it's
First for
very
everything.
it's very visceral, shall we say. Okay. Then we go into the vampire moms and then the demon
Oof.
babies.
Yep.
Um let's show them what happens when you put the demon baby back into the womb.
Oh my god. I was just I was just lingering on that page earlier because that like that is complete mad scientist fuel, right? That
Uh-huh.
whole part. So and like it doesn't even end there. It's like they put the baby back into the womb. And then
Yes.
the mom tries to feed because she needs blood for the baby, but instead of attacking Kiria, the main girl, she ends up attacking the doctor who put the baby back in. That's so scary. Look at that. Total like crypt. What's that? Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt, yeah.
Right? Kind of horror. It's amazing. And I think, right, I mean, like, just jump off that, like, the book, the manga doesn't limit itself to like one kind of horror, because at the end of the day it's really cosmic horror and like body horror, but it touches on like a lot of other genres, right? Like there's zombies, the
Yeah.
springboard, the Jack in the Box chapter was like a zombie kind of chapter. This part, like vampires,
We
completely
don't even
different.
know it's cosmic horror until like near the end, too.
Yeah, yeah.
And by that point, when you find out it's cosmic horror, you're like, oh well, they're screwed forever.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Nothing we can. Oh well. I guess
They're
that's
never
it.
leaving now.
Yeah.
So at the end of that story, Kiriya goes, I escaped from the hospital. I'm sorry. Can you just imagine walking around with all of these placenta mushrooms
Oh my god. Disgusting. Oh, and people eating them.
and
Like you're
people
not
eating
just looking
them?
at them. Yeah. Like
Well,
again, they're just drawn to it.
so Kiriya goes, I escaped from the hospital. I have no idea what happened there after that. I wasn't about to go back and find out, which is sensible. But why don't you just leave the town?
Yeah. Right? It's like, girl.
Go, all of you, just go. Just go, just
Yeah.
leave, all of you. Um, but no, so that's actually when the book stops being serialized or going in a serialized form, because now they're trying to leave, the tornadoes hit and
Yeah.
everything. And you get some nice colored pages too. The the randomness of the colored pages really throws me off. It's just they show up all of a sudden.
That's true because it's not like every like I would understand if like each chapter cover was colored, but they're not. They're
No,
just
they're
like,
not.
oh, right, colored page, nice, but also, where'd you come from? Oh,
And
everyone's
it
drawing
also
that's really
stops
good.
being a thing where people just get targeted. Now it's just everyone's growing calluses and they're in the shapes of spirals and
Yeah,
people are making renovations to their town and then the town ends up in a shape of a spiral.
yeah,
This is when you kind of know that something is up with this town, right?
yep. Oh
Mhm.
yeah. Oh god. It's not it's just more than it's like way more than a simple infection. It's just something you can't explain or anticipate at all.
Even when you finally explain it at the end, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you don't know.
Mm-hmm. Nope.
All right. So basically, it's post apocalyptic. It counts as post apocalyptic now, right? Like
Yeah.
after the
Yeah.
storm.
Yep. Oh yeah. That's when it shifts gears.
And the moment it becomes post apocalyptic, we go into this whole thing where people are just trying to survive and everything. So let me ask you something,
Yeah.
Bea.
Mm-hmm.
People turn into snails. It's creepy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think of the people that eat them?
Oh my god. Well, I would argue you're eating humans. You're literally eating fellow people. But it's also just like I mean, like in that context, because at that point because right, they can't leave the town anymore. Like if they were gonna like what you said, like girl, you should have left town like chapters ago. Listen to your boyfriend and left with him because he was the only one who had sense right at the start. Um, but at that point, like no one can leave the town because the airways blocked by storm, so airplanes can't get there. The boats can't get there because there are lots of whirlpools in the
It's all a
seas in the
spiral.
lake. Yeah, exactly. Like it's really just consumed this single town, right? It's like that's creepy. That's super creepy and super gross. But I would also understand it in their context. I wouldn't do it. But like if they're out of food and they literally just want to survive, there's no way out, and they're low on they're low on moral fuel. I don't blame them for eating whatever living thing they see there, especially if they're not like killing people who are still quote unquote normal, right? But
What about the people who are deliberately keeping their friends who are about to turn into snails alive so that when they turn into a snail, then they can kill them and eat them?
oh, that's just that that is like ethically dubious. It's like I would get it if you're keeping them in hopes of finding a way to save them, but if you're keeping them just so you can consume them afterwards instead of like organically finding another food source that is not your friend, right? It's like, oh man, that's just sad. It's and but I think that adds to the creep factor, just like him showing all of these different kinds of people trying to cope with the apocalyptic level of the spiral. It's like, holy shit, it's reached that point, and there's really no going back from it because people are turning to snails, people are turning to spirals, the town is blocked by natural calamities, all in the shape of spirals. What else are you gonna do?
Do you remember that guy who was like,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm going to go into his shell and eat him from there?
Yeah. Oh god.
Like, what's creepier, turning into a snail or being that guy?
Ooh, that. Well, I think initially the turning to snails kind the impact of it wears off in the sense that you get used. I know you said you didn't get used to it, like you're
Never.
just like, oh, right.
I'm still
It's
not
still
used to this
creepy.
whole book.
Which I guess is good. Fresh factor every time you see it. But at least with the snails, like you're all like logically you're already accustomed to people turning to, so like it's an accepted fact of the world that he establishes that like okay, people are gonna eventually turn to snails. Like if you don't get sucked by a whirlpool or carried away by a storm, you're gonna turn into a snail. But like
Or you get tied together with everybody
oh god.
else.
Oh god, that was really creepy too. That was so creepy. The one in the, yeah, I just reached that part. Like when everyone just tried to like stuff themselves in one house and that house could not hold them.
Yes.
Nothing bad.
Yeah. Which, by
Ooh,
the way, that's a great drawing of a house.
yes. We love architecture here. Thank you, Junji Ito.
We do. Very detailed, very detail oriented drawing of a house. That's great.
Yeah. Plus points. Thank you so much for for this wonderful realistic art. My god. Just scary. So I guess like that guy just eating the snail is just creep factor because he doesn't even like he literally just goes in there on his own accord and it's like,
Yeah.
that's right.
And when you
Oh
meet him again, he's like, "Oh, that was heavenly.
yeah.
I love it." And then he turns into a spiral. Oh my God.
As everyone does.
As everyone does
Eventually.
at some point. Did
Yeah.
you also notice that even certain things like the megaphone turn into a spiral?
Yeah. Which is a really neat detail, right?
Very,
Like,
very, very neat detail. Yeah.
yeah. Just nothing is spared from the spiral. Everything and everyone, especially when like it becomes a whole that post-apocalyptic part, no one and nothing is safe from the spiral. And like everything is, and it's all unavoidable, right? Like we've said.
Yes. So eventually, what they find out is that
Yeah.
this was built on top of a city
Yeah.
that was in the shape of a spiral. And what is it? The city's alive?
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's literally an entity, right? A cosmic. You don't even know if it's a cosmic entity. It's just this thing that's been living underneath their city that's like suddenly awake. Because there was a part about how it wakes up every few thousand years or something to create like a new town and then to devour it, and then something else is gonna be built on top of what's left. So,
And
ooh,
when Kirie ends up landing in that town, so at the very end of it, the only two people left who aren't affected by the spiral are Kirie and Shuichi,
yeah.
which, of course, because in case you people weren't around when I read my synopsis, they are the main characters and they are, in fact, boyfriend and girlfriend, as,
Oh man, I didn't know that.
as hammered into my head by this by this synopsis. Wikipedia is even like Uzumaki follows a high school teenager, Kirie Goshima, and her boyfriend, Shuichi Saito. Okay.
I love.
Do you know what Korozo Cho means?
No, I don't.
It means it translates to Black Vortex Town. I think maybe if you name your town Black Vortex Town,
It's like maybe we're calling upon something that would turn it into a black vortex town.
it's like, have you ever like for example, right? If you have a baby boy, would you ever name him Jeeves? Like you know what job he's gonna get when he grows up.
Yeah.
He's gonna be a butler. Like sometimes sometimes you're calling on these things.
Exactly. Actually, that's such an interesting point. Like, I never thought about like if what if like it was named that way because of what happened like before, right? Because it's been established that this happens again and again, and
Yes,
there's nothing you can do to
and it
stop it.
will happen again.
Yeah,
It
which is so
will continue
sad.
to happen.
Yeah,
So they are unaffected, but then Kirie and they get split up. Look at that. Look at that. That's the old town. That's the pathway to the old town,
yep.
to the
Oh
sleeping city.
gosh.
And then Kirie falls and lands in this super intricately detailed spread of
Yeah.
a land of spirals, and all of these dead bodies are just there. Apparently, this is an expedition that's been made many times before, and everybody just turns into a spiral.
Yeah.
She finally finds her mom and dad, which is sad because
Because there's spiral.
they're spirals. The book
Yeah.
ends with her and Shuichi lovingly in each other's arms, but spirals. They're
Yeah.
basically spirals at this point. What do you think of this? Of the way there's something about, because we've been talking about the juxtaposition
Mm-hmm.
of the realistic style with the
Yeah.
fantasy stuff. What do you think about
Yeah.
this juxtaposition of, I don't want to say romance, it's not romance, sincere love and all of this horror? Like, what do you think about that?
I mean, for me, because like I know the ending was divisive or divisive. I don't know. I don't know if
Divisive.
people pronounce it divisive, right? Okay, great. Was divisive because people were just like, oh, it's like some people felt it was a cop out, or some people felt it was lazy. But I mean, personally, I think there wasn't any other way to end it without staying, if you weren't gonna stay true to that theme of cosmic horror. At the end of the day, this story started with these two kids, this boyfriend and this girlfriend,
Wait,
as
what?
the what I thought they were right, just like they were the ones who discovered that this whole spiral phenomenon was going on, and they're the ones who were at the very end of it. And it might be a little cliche, quote unquote, or like, but it's also poetic that, like, in the face of this unstoppable horror, they realize that there's really nothing they can do, because, like, even if they try to find out what the spiral is, where it started, if there's a way to stop it, they're already weak. They're already starting to turn and give in to the disease or condition. So it's actually, like, really poignant, and just very sad also to see them choose to just accept their fate in the best way possible, so, like, together, that it's they're at peace, and I think it's really, like, there's something powerful about that for me. Like, I don't think it was a cop out ending, or a corny ending. It's like, okay, there's really no other way to go about this without defying the logic that you set for the world.
I didn't realize the ending was divisive. What is it? Did people
Yeah.
not like, did people want a happy ending?
I think there were some people who wanted, if not happy, then like a more action oriented ending, rather that because, like, Kiryu and Shuichi are like what I said, they're resigned to their fate, right? They're like, yeah, we're gonna this isn't happening, we're not gonna get out, there's really nothing we can do. But there were some people, like, on the internet who were like, why don't they try to find out what it is, or like maybe there's a way to stop, because it's an entity. But that would really just go against the whole point of, right, the themes and the whole logic, that there really is no logic to this thing. It just happens. You don't know why, you don't know how, you don't know where. But
That's fascinating because that's what would
yeah.
happen in, like, standard heroic fiction. But this
Yes,
isn't
yes.
heroic fiction.
Exactly.
And I wonder why people would be expecting the conventions of heroic fiction from a book like this.
Right?
Maybe it's just
It's like,
like, why? Like, honestly, I'm confused. Why would anybody expect them to do what, a heroic anime, manga, or superhero character would do? That's just it's they've never done anything heroic throughout this whole book. Most of it is them trying to run
yeah.
away from everything else.
Exactly. Right. Actually, that's really good you point that out, because it's like, it's not like other horror, if you're gonna talk about the genre, and like not just this manga, but like other, movies, where there's like a monster that you can physically try to fight. Like, for example, if you're gonna go back to Nightmare on Elm Street, you can actually try to fight Freddy. You can try
Yeah.
to right, defeat him, or
Well, no,
like
you can't.
Jason, you can try to
Okay.
kill. You can't, right? But you can try, and people do want to try. Or like Jason, you can try to defeat him too. Um, so I guess people expected that kind of, that's like, it's this concrete, since it's a concrete monster or entity, that there is a way to stop it, even if there shouldn't be, or there isn't always a way to stop it. It's not like what you said. It's not that kind of horror book. It's not that kind of work of fiction. So I don't know.
If there was a way to stop it, these two characters wouldn't have been the two characters to do it.
Yep. Yeah.
I think what they really want is for Naruto to show up and stop it.
Oh my god. His namesake. And that is where he gets his last name. That's it, guys. Thank you, Junji Ito.
Thank you, Junji Ito. We have solved Naruto.
You mean Boruto's father?
You
Who's
see,
Naruto?
Naruto lasted like what 18 years or whatever it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, and really all we had to do was go to this horror manga
To find out where he came
to find out where he came from. Uh, all right, so let's look at this. So they end up together. You know, they're dead, obviously, and then it closes with them saying, "And with the spiral complete, a strange thing happened. Just as time sped up when we were on the outskirts, in the center of the spiral, it stood still. So the curse was over the same moment it began, the endless frozen moment I spent in Shuichi's arms, and it will be the same moment when it ends again, when the next Kurozocho is built amidst the ruins of the old one, when the eternal spiral awakes once more." That is haunting and also kind of beautiful.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's like at that moment that you're it's because throughout the book, she's been narrating the story since the start, right? Like it's her thoughts, it's her words and her memories that we're following. And it's only at the end that you find out like, oh my god, she's literally narrating this from the afterlife. Like she is dead.
She's
Right? She is
dead, yeah.
dead. Right? Which is insane. Like and it's I think like it's beautiful like this ending is beautiful because it just drives home the point that again, if you're going to look at it from a horror perspective, that there are inexplicable things we cannot avoid, that we cannot control, no matter how hard we try. But there's also, I guess, peace in that, in knowing that, and in accepting that sometimes you just gotta like, no matter what choice you make, it's just gonna end up like this, and maybe that's okay. And I guess that's what Shuichi and Kiria did at the end. They were like, this is it. This is this is how we're gonna go out, and that's fine. There's nothing we can do, but that's okay.
Did you actually like them, Shuichi and Kirie, throughout the
I
course of
like
the
them.
book?
I found them cute, but I was also like, I remember being distinctly annoyed at Kitty at the start, especially when so much of the weird stuff was happening again and again. That's like, girl, why did you leave? Why not you leave? There is an out. Your boyfriend is like from the start. Look at the first chapter. He's like, we need to get out of here. We need to get out. That was just his dad who was affected. Like no one else was affected at this point. But he knew that they had to get out. And I just obviously if she listened, we wouldn't have a story. But
It was
it's
the
also like,
same way with Shuichi because I was like,
yeah.
all right, I really need like a disenchanted like teenage boy
Yeah.
right now. Like, yeah, that's what I need. But then no,
Mm-hmm.
their combination, they have good chemistry. We have a
Yeah.
couple
Yeah.
of we have a bonus chapter in
Oh
this
yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Uh I don't know the background behind the bonus chapter. Like, why is it there and not somewhere in the first half of the book? Would you know?
I think Junji Ito removed it. And actually I realized like for good reason because it was too on the nose. Like because the lost chapter it's called the lost chapter. So this lost
Yeah.
chapter is about um people spotting galaxies. Like for some reason the townsfolk discover galaxies in the sky, but the galaxies turn out to be like spiral shaped, and then eventually they come down on the people who discover them and like consume them. But it was it's a really good standalone read, but thematically speaking, I think it makes sense that he removed it because it was too. I think it revealed too much about the cosmic part of it, right? Like it just
Oh, I see
took
that.
you out. Yeah, like because everything else up until that point, even towards the end of the story, it was all about natural elements that are surrounding us. Like the air or the land or the ocean, the sea, the water. but this one is distinctly outside of beyond Earth. So it might have been too like in terms of the scope. I think it wouldn't have fit, it doesn't fit as well into the story as the other chapters do.
Or it could, you could say it tips the hand, it tips your hand too early. Like it
Yeah, yeah,
escalates everything way earlier than it should.
yeah, exactly, right. And it's like it would be hard to insert this into even towards the end. I'm not sure where he'd put it
No,
because
because
even
it's
until
a
the end,
standalone thing, so it should go in the
yeah,
first half, but it's too big for the first half. I get you.
yeah,
What do you think
yeah.
of the afterwards?
let me let me scroll back to the afterwards.
I think they're hilarious.
Oh my god, they're super hilarious, and I think that they're just more like they just give a better portrait of like how Junji Ito is as a person
I
and
know.
as a right. It's like look at that. It's like he takes
Th-
the
That's
horror.
him, yeah.
Yeah. It's him in the Uzumaki universe, but like it's so funny
Do me a
because it's
favor.
just
Do me a favor. I know you like doing
yeah.
dramatic readings. You want to read
Okay.
those first two panels?
Oh my god. All right. Oh, oh god. So these two
Yeah, those
panels.
two.
Oh, let's see. Let's see. The spiral. Such a mysterious pattern. With the manga Uzumaki, I, Junji Ito, attempted to find an answer to the secrets of this enigmatic shape. Junji Ito does not sound anything like that. He sounds like a very sweet man.
Of course not.
Artistic liberty.
Let me ask you, Bea, if you could act as
Yeah.
somebody, as anybody in this book, who would you pick?
Ooh, that's such an interest. I would definitely be Asami, the girl with the scar. Like she's just right,
The
such a
girl with
fun
a
character.
scar? Really?
Yeah, yeah, such a fun character. Like she, yeah, she knows she's quiet, but she knows she's attractive. But then like, suddenly when someone isn't attractive, she's like, why aren't you attracted to me? And she tries to do everything she can to get that dude attracted to her, but at the end she gets lost. She literally gets devoured by the spiral.
To be
So
clear, we're talking about the girl with the scar or the girl with the hair?
the girl with the scar, the
Okay.
girl with the scar, yeah, the one with the short hair, right? Because the girl with the hair is like a different story. Like she's jealous, but the girl with the scar is like, oh, this pretty girl. So she's a fun character to play, or like one of the moms, one of the creepy moms would be really interesting to do. And I mean, like, it could be a bloodsucker. Happy Halloween, right? It's a staple. How about you? Which one would you be?
If I could, it would be
Yeah.
the kid who with the Jack in the Box. Because
Ooh.
I feel like that would be fun at first. Ah!
Yeah.
And then
Oh my
eventually you'll
god.
be like, ah.
Why does that fit you so well? That actually fits you so well. That's it. Halloween costumes. There we go.
I'm just gonna have to cut myself in half and then turn
Yeah.
my lower half into a spring.
Yeah. Okay.
How much are you looking forward to the anime, which is coming
Oh
out
my god.
in October 2022?
Oh my god, I can't believe I have to wait for a year. Like I'm supposed to be this year. But I am super stoked because like 2019, right? Like we're going back to that story. Like when I first read this and then I found out a few days later that they were gonna do an anime. And then I found out that the composer that they got for the anime is Colin Stetson, who composed the soundtrack of Ari Aster's Hereditary, a movie that I
Really?
adore. Like yes, and actually Hereditary was the first horror movie in a long time as a horror enthusiast that made me tremble in the cinema. Like I was just like, I'm actually scared. And it's not just because people are reacting around me. I was like, holy shit, this is frightening. And the soundtrack was really good. So and then they released a trailer to the anime this year. And so far the visuals look good because I remember there was a Junji Ito collection anime, which I haven't watched, but people are like, no, you don't need to watch it because it was done like the typical anime style, but people said it didn't do justice to any of his stories.
Mhm.
That the art wasn't great, the animation wasn't great. Um, but then with this one, the Uzumaki anime, they kept so far in the trailer they kept the original art of the manga and just kind of like animated parts of it, which made everything look dreamy. You know, it added like a surreal, dreamy effect to it. And if they keep that in the anime, that's gonna if they pull it off, you know, that's gonna be really great. So I'm hoping they pull it off so bad, so bad.
Out of 5 stars, how much would you
Yeah,
recommend Uzumaki as a horror comic to give to people?
100 stars. I love this. I love this manga so much. Like this manga is so good. I read it and I was just like, I was on my bed and I was like, what is? I feel like there is no point to life. You know, just another existential crisis. You know, the year I turned 24. That's totally normal, but it's so good. The art is divine, like artistically speak, it's divine, even for on the level of like if you're a constant reader of manga or you know consumer of anime, it's so good. Um, and just the way that he builds the stories, like each of the horror, it starts so small, so intimate, and it just just spirals down into deeper
See
depths.
what you did there.
Yeah,
That's
right.
what he does for
And
every standalone story, and it's also what
yeah,
he does for the whole thing as a big story.
yeah, and
Mm.
it's so cool. Like you know, it's so cool to see it all play out. Like you think you have body horror figured out or just horror in general. Wait till you read this because like he shows a lot of concepts you didn't even think were creepy. And then you see it and you're like, oh god, yeah, now that's gonna give me and adding that to my list of traumas in life. Thank you. Thank you, Junji Ito.
My list of traumas: reading Uzumaki.
A trauma I am grateful for. So I wouldn't change a thing.
Thank you
Please read
for
it.
thank you for joining me tonight, Bea. Happy Halloween.
Yes. Happy Halloween, Doy. Thank you for having me. So guys, read this. Read this for Halloween. I promise it's a great ender or starter for the season.
And of also, if you are in the Philippines, you can easily buy this at Fully Booked.
Yep.